I just discovered a tool that's about to change everything we know about deckboard repair. US4 created a plug cutter that solves a problem that I've been dealing with for over 30 years. If this thing works like they claim, this will revolutionize the way that we fix deckboards. All right guys, so US4 sent us a few bits. Now these are some high-end plug cutters. I would assume these are normally designed for, I would say, drill press use, but we're on the job site and we don't have a drill press here. So we're gonna do something normally that would take a couple additional possible tools that you may or may not have, okay? These bits are high-end, carbide tipped, and they're high-end plug cutters. And what a plug cutter is where you take this bit and you drill it into a piece of material to create a plug that you need to either hide a screw or repair a problem that you may have on a deck. Now, you've heard the word cortex a lot in our videos. This is cortex. This is a little 1/4-inch plug, and it has a little bit of a beveled edge on it, and it fits into a 1/4-inch hole. So a screw goes into the deck, and then you subset it to a certain depth, and then you put this cork into the decking. Now, we're working with PVC, okay? These bits are also designed for softwoods and hardwoods, but since we use so much PVC decking in our work, we're gonna go ahead and use it for PVC. This video is for use with these larger plug cutters because sometimes this can become a problem if we make a mistake, if we double up and accidentally make 2 holes instead of 1 in the same location, or let's say we do a scratch or a dent in a deck board, this 1/4-inch plug won't fit. So basically we're taking this 1/4-inch plug and we're making bigger plugs. Now they sent us a couple different sizes. There's a 3/8 inch size and a 1/2 inch size, and that's the one I decided to use because this will get us the maximum amount of repair coverage in our hole. You can see this is a very nice carbide tip blade, 4 cutter heads on this drill, and then it goes into another cutting set that cuts out the plug. And then on the side, the plug can push through into this space here. So it's kind of a cool setup where it has kind of like an ejection part of the bit. So the plug comes through here and ejects out, but you gotta be able to drill through 2 different pieces of material to get it to eject. I thought we'd just take a piece of PVC, cut a couple plugs, and just remember that I'm supposed to have this on a drill press and things might be clamped down, so things are solid. So I'm gonna try to keep this as steady as I can, but it may or may not work as well as if we were using a drill press. Now, the thing maybe to do would be to take this bit, put it in a drill press, make all your plugs, and then bring them to work and have them on reserve or something like that for those times when you really need it. We have 2 different sizes. We have a 3/8 inch hole cutter. We have a 1/2 inch hole cutter. I've chosen the 1/2 inch hole cutter to try because I thought it'd be kind of cool to see how close it looks to a cortex plug, but in a larger situation where I've actually had to do this before, and I've had less expensive plug cutters that I've used. Irwin makes some, but those ones aren't self-ejecting. You have to cut the plugs, and then you have to rip on a table saw, and then the plugs kind of fall out of your jig or whatever, okay? So these, again, just saying one more time, drill press is probably the way to go, but we're gonna go ahead and drill a couple out and see if we can't make these work, okay? I'm just gonna try to be really careful with how I cut it out. What I wanna do is get into this plywood base and keep drilling down a little bit to see if I can eject the plug. So here goes. All right, that's a really clean looking plug. I think I got a little bit of kerf on it. Since I don't have a drill press, it's really hard to get this bit to grab. So we got one, I'd say that's pretty clean. Let's go ahead and cut one more for safety. See if I can cut one without messing up. Nope. Okay. That one seemed to turn out pretty nice, and it popped right out. Oh yeah, that's a nice clean one right there. And I made these the same thickness as the decking material. So if you're not drilling down a full inch or whatever the thickness of your deck board is, you may have to make these shorter so they fit into your hole properly. You probably don't want them a full inch thick. You might have to sand them down. What I was thinking about doing was putting a little beveled edge, kind of like what that Cortex plug had. You can see the difference in the size of these two plugs. And if you look at the bottom of the plug, you can see the tapered end of the small plug compared to the straight shank of our 1/2 inch plug. So what I'm gonna do is, just for ease of insertion into the hole we're gonna drill, I'm gonna go ahead and sand the edge of the bottom just a little bit, just so it'll wedge into the hole that we're gonna drill. And that's all you gotta do, okay? Now we have to drill a 1/2 inch hole. So we're gonna take this bit off because it's a 1/2 inch plug cutter, and we're gonna put a 1/2 inch drill bit into our drill. Okay, and now we're gonna drill a hole. Let's just say we have a damaged part right here, or we have a screw in the deck or something like that. But it just depends on what size hole you need. Like I said, it could be a 3/8 inch hole, it could be a 1/2 inch hole. It just depends on what you need. We're gonna go ahead and drill this hole a 1/2 inch. Okay. That's completely drilled, nice clean hole. Oh, wait a second. That was a beautiful hole, except it's the wrong size. It's a 3/8 inch hole. We'll do a 3/8 inch hole too, but let's go ahead and cut a 1/2 inch hole. Okay, there's your 1/2 inch. So you can see the difference in the two sizes of 3/8 versus 1/2. Here's the 1/2 inch plug we made with the sanded end. So it's gonna sit really nice. Now, okay, there's two ways to do this. We can either just stick it in there, but obviously it has a little bit of tolerance, so it's probably gonna move around. So with wood, you're gonna usually use glue and glue this down into the hole. Since this isn't wood, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take a little PVC trim glue and put it on just the bottom side of this plug. My good set of glue is somewhere. Let's just say we put some glue on here and make sure that your grain is lined up. And I should be able to tap this down a little bit with my hand, but then just gonna use a mallet until you're flush. My grain's off just a little bit, but that feels pretty good. You really have to pay attention to your grains to make sure that you're turned the right way so that this disappears as much as possible in the board. Okay, we've decided to go ahead and try a 3/8 inch hole just for giggles. Since we went ahead and drilled a 3/8 inch hole already, we're gonna use a 3/8 inch plug cutter. And I had better luck running the drill bit before I put it into the material. Not that time. Still learning, guys. There we go. That was pretty clean. All right. And I just tipped this upside down and it fell out. So that's pretty cool. That's a pretty clean hole. There's your 3/8 inch. You don't have to sand it a lot. You just need to get it to wedge in there. That's a pretty nice fit. Oh, it's turning. So that's something tricky that we got to worry about. We're learning as we go here, guys. It's a pretty snug fit. I can barely push it in with my thumb, but it is turning a little bit as we put it into the, that's a pretty clean hole though. I suppose the sharper your drill bits are, the newer the bits are, the better the result's gonna be. I have a bunch of used 3/8 inch and 1/2 inch drill bits that we run through aluminum. Those aren't gonna be quite as sharp as if you use a brand new drill bit, a machine bit or something like that to drill these holes, to pilot the holes. They also have different pre-drill bits and different things you can use to pilot the holes as well, but that 3/8 is looking pretty good. The 1/2, not quite as much, but I'm sure with a little bit more practice, we can make that so it's virtually invisible. Okay, let's try to get a better one. So I think the way is have pressure on the board and start slow. That one got marred up. We're tossing that one. Okay. So we've got a couple clean plugs. I think when you start putting a lot of surface area with a big plug, you're probably gonna have little tiny imperfections in the hole. The smaller the hole, the easier the imperfections are to hide. That one's not bad. It's a little high still, but depending on your sun and shadows and where the lighting is casting, that's pretty good. I'd say that's not bad. That 3/8 is almost invisible. And the Cortex plugs that we get from Fastenmaster are basically, they hide pretty well. If I had to make a professional opinion, I would probably try to go with a 3/8 inch bit first. If I had a little bit of damage or an oversized hole and I could get it with 3/8, I would do this first. Then I would go to the 1/2 inch plug cutter. If I'm using wood, I don't think it's gonna be as big a deal because you can sand it out and you can put the sawdust in the glue and you can blend a lot of things a lot easier. But these aren't terrible, man. I mean, that's a salvageable board compared to having to trash a board. If you have one mistake in a board and a 1/4 inch ain't gonna cut it and you gotta do a bigger plug, definitely a cool way to go with these US4 plug cutters. So, all right guys, so I just went and found a 2x4 in the back of my truck, and just for giggles, we thought we'd do a test on some softwood. I think this is like Doug fir. It's not an exotic hardwood by any means, but you know, it could give us a good example of what and we're gonna use a 3/8 inch plug cutter. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and drill a plug. And wow, that bit's kind of cool because it does work all the way through 1.5 inches, but it did mar up the top of the board, or the top of the plug board. It did kind of mar up the top of the plug. With wood though, you can sand it out, so it's not as big a deal as long as you don't overdrive the plug. The wood we have is kind of aged. Let's see if we can cut one more and maybe get a little bit cleaner plug. That's not terrible. It's got a little bit of a edge to it, but let's go ahead and drill a couple holes. And again, guys, you know, the plugs I'm making are big. And obviously, if you're putting screws into a hardwood deck or something, you're only gonna be making the plugs maybe a 1/2 inch or a 1/4 inch, and you're gonna glue them all in or something like that on hardwood. This is obviously too big of a plug, but I'm just doing it for example, okay? Now, normally I would go ahead and put some wood glue in this before I put this in. I bet you if we sanded that out, okay, we'll grab a sander. So cannot find our palm sander because the guy that knows where it is isn't here. We're just gonna put an 80 grit belt on the belt sander and see if we can smooth this out a little bit more. Not terrible. Like I said before, if we had some glue, and the grain, if I would have turned this plug around, the grain would have lined right up. So it'd have been really hard to see that. With a little bit of glue, I think this one would pretty much disappear. This one, you can see it, but again, when you're plugging an entire deck, you're gonna see the plug, okay? The whole idea is to minimize the look and give it a hidden look to it. But it doesn't mean you're gonna eliminate the fasteners, period. There's still gonna be some work involved in trying to get them down to a nice, smooth, even texture. With wood, you can sand it and craft it more than PVC. PVC, you get one crack at it. If it works, great, and if it doesn't, you just gotta deal with it. All right, guys, so there you go. A couple cool new tools from US4. Stay tuned as we're going to continue to bring you more news of that company and their brand and all the cool stuff that they're bringing out. Thanks for watching, guys. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button and that bell icon. If you want to have your deck shown on our channel, just check out the description below. And please don't forget to check out our podcast. Link again in the description below. Thanks for watching, guys. Have a great day.